As a traveler, you guys make a lot of money. You guys also are typically coming and going really quickly, typically heading to an assignment. You don't know a lot of people there. All of these things can lend themselves to being a target to somebody who has an agenda for you and gets you involved in a toxic relationship. I've been in this industry for 22 years almost now, and I cannot tell you how many times I've had someone tell me I've fallen in love with the man or woman of my dreams. And I mean, I'm literally not kidding, maybe a dozen times. And I've had them disappear only to have all of those times, 2 years later-ish, reach back out to me and say, wow, you have no idea what I just fell into. It's toxicity in a relationship. And unfortunately, you guys really do have, I guess, that attraction to people, especially right now with the kind of money that you're making, the lifestyle you have. You got to be careful. You got to be aware. And it's important. Today, I'm bringing on Rihanna Milne. Rihanna is she's written 7 books, an amazing guest today. She's written a ton of books. She's a global life and love coach. And we're going to talk to her today about avoiding toxic relationships on Travel Evolved. This is Travel Evolved. I'm Mark Holloway. Welcome, everyone. I've got a really fascinating show today. I'm excited about it. I'm just going to jump right in. We've got Rihanna Milne. She is a global life and love coach. She's written 7 books. I mean, this woman has a number 1 bestseller on Amazon for couples therapy and women's spirituality. She's got her book, Live Beyond Your Dreams, and then Love Beyond Your Dreams, the follow-up subsequent book on there as well. She's incredible. She's been in therapy and in couples coaching and in psychology her entire life. She's got a really interesting story to tell. We've talked already, and I can't wait to bring her on because there's a lot of stuff that she's bringing to the table today. And the main thing that I reached out to her about was I want to talk about toxic relationships. And again, this is one of those topics that no one wants to cover, no one wants to talk about, but I do here on this series and on this show because it's important that you guys understand what a target some of you can be. What we're going to talk about a little bit today with Rihanna is how you can keep making the same mistakes over and over again. And it's not a profession thing like it is with traveling healthcare professionals. You guys just lend yourselves to this sometimes. Many of you do. But today we're going to talk to Rihanna about why it is that this stuff keeps happening. I want to ask her some questions about how to avoid this stuff. How do you recognize if you are a kind of person that tends to always get into toxic relationships? What is a toxic relationship? This is kind of super important stuff. It's part of that whole rounding you out into becoming an amazing traveler. And a lot of it is me protecting you guys from things that I've seen for 22 years in this industry. It's common. I'm not trying to be all hellfire and brimstone in this episode, but I'm telling you guys, this needs to be addressed. This is one of those things where you guys have this somehow an attraction from people that want to take full advantage of you. You're caregivers. You have kind hearts. You believe people. You want to believe people. You make a ton of money. You don't know typically a lot of people in that town. So somebody who everyone else is aware of can pounce on you. And next thing you know, you're falling head over heels in love with the wrong individual. And again, I've just seen this forever. So it's important. I can't wait to get Rihanna on here. she's fascinating. We talked for a little while, and I couldn't stop getting on the phone with her because this is just one of many topics that she covers. She's very well rounded, but I wanted to zero in on this one because I thought this was the first one I wanted to hit with her. That was the most important. She does do a podcast, so she has a really good podcast, Lessons in Life and Love. You can find that, I think, on about 15 different podcast platforms, so check that out. And of course, I'm going to plug her now and plug her afterwards that you want to go to Riana Milne, which is RIA, excuse me, let's try that again, RIANAMILNE.com, where you get all kinds of information from her website. You can actually have her work with you directly if you'd like. And for some of you, I would urge you. So let's talk about what we're going to get into the episode a little bit. But first and foremost, as always, I want to thank you guys so much for subscribing to our podcast, subscribing to our YouTube channel. Both of those numbers are going through the roof. I think a lot of the guests I'm having on, like Riana, are really helping with that because it's important. Like I said, when I first created this new channel and this new podcast, I wanted to bring some really cool elements to the table here. Things that you're not going to get anywhere else, not even from your peers. And I've got an opportunity. I've got some good connections out there that allow me to bring guests on like Riana to really talk about some things that I think need to be discussed in our industry. And that's, again, I hope that's why those podcast subscriptions are going up. I hope that's why those YouTube subscriptions are going through the roof, because we're bringing stuff to you that I think is important, and we're going to continue to do that. We're going to continue to talk about what it's like to work on this side of the desk, so to speak, as I always say, in the travel healthcare industry. It's so unique, so crazy, so exciting, so up and down. And I'm bringing a lot of that into the table too so that you guys can stay engaged. So anyway, obviously, let's get back to it. Toxic relationships. It is something we all deal with. Everyone's been in one, and probably. We have to kind of recognize what that is, what it looks like. These are typically men and women that don't even know that they are toxic. They're so different, out in public that they are behind the scenes, or they jump right over and head over heels in love with you, and they're everything that you want them to be for a very short period of time until you're in a relationship, and oftentimes that's where you feel like you just don't want to get out. They're very, very good at manipulating. They're very, very good at coercing you into staying into a relationship that you don't want to be in. And we're going to talk a lot about that today with Riana. So super cool. I think the team back in Denver is going to be putting up a lot of her information throughout the interview, so you guys can go back, re-watch this, re-listen to it. We'll give that website. Again, it's RianaMilne.com, RianaMilne.com. And you can go on there and just check out all the things she's done, and even contact her and get some information to kind of get started on potentially getting yourself out of this rut of either going after these relationships over and over again. And you guys know who you are. For those of you that don't feel like you're in that boat, please watch and listen to this episode, because I think you can help some other folks out there that you recognize that either, as a former traveler, or you go into a facility and you see someone that, is in this kind of a situation. You may be able to direct them and help them get out of it. Because what I've learned from Riana is that it is a fixable thing. This is not a lifetime, career counseling thing that you have to go through forever. You can actually recognize it, get some strength, understand the signs, and get out of this cycle of constantly, getting involved in toxic relationships. And these can be, both intimate relationships or also just friendship relationships. I mean, it's everything that we all kind of encompass. So at any rate, I want to jump on with Riana. She's in the green room, as we always say here on Travel Evolve. And again, I got to switch mics, as you guys know. We start to move into the new mic, so the sound changes a little bit, but it's the only way I can do this, going from our high condenser mic to a less condensed mic. But at any rate, let's jump on with Riana, and who's been patiently waiting. She's on the East Coast, so it's middle of the day. It's really early here, and we'll get moving here and have her come up. This is going to be an awesome conversation. Hang tight. Hey, Riana, how are you?
Hey, Mark, how are you? Thanks for having me.
You're more than welcome. Having a good morning. We are doing this recording in the morning. I think it's okay to tell our audience that.
Sure.
You were on the East Coast, definitely.
Beautiful sunny Florida right now. Yep.
Oh, nice. Well, I want to jump in today. Obviously, you're an amazingly talented guest. You've done a ton of stuff. We're going to talk about a lot of that. Authored many books. We're going to focus, as you and I kind of talked about it during our pre-interview that we were kind of discussing the opportunity to hopefully get you on here, which I so appreciate you doing. Today, we really want to focus a little bit about toxic relationships, and you and I had a really great conversation about traveling healthcare professionals, nurses, allied professionals, and how, oftentimes they can be a target because, even you said it, they make really good money. They're nomadic in lifestyles. Oftentimes they're here and gone. And, one of your books, which I want to kind of give you a plug for and talk about, is really about this whole topic, the toxic relationship. So let's jump in and talk a little about. Let's start with that book. I mean, I guess just a weird, crazy question. What started the idea of authoring that book specifically?
Okay. Well, I have written 7. Love Beyond Your Dreams, Break Free of Toxic Relationships to Have the Love You Deserve. It came after I wrote the first book, Live Beyond Your Dreams, which is about the mindset for success that I have been teaching since my early 20s. Actually, really intensely when I had a model and talent agent. I was teaching talent to go for their dreams, not believe in the naysayers or the people putting them down because they wanted to be models or actors, singers or dancers, and they were trying to get to the big market from a small town.
Sure.
So that's where Live Beyond Your Dreams came from. Then I happened to go through a toxic love relationship. And I was not saying I was going to write one on love. Actually, I meditate every day. And in my final question in meditation, it's, God, what do you want me to know? And he said, write the book on love. It'll be a bestseller. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't want to write another book. Because Live was just out about 8 months now. And it's a lot of work to write a book.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. Tell me, for those of us that have never written a book, I'm sure most people out there listening to us right now probably never have. It's an undertaking, isn't it? It sounds so romantic, and I'll just work at my own schedule, and I'll just free write whenever I want. Not so much, right?
It's very hard. I mean, Love ended up being 400 pages, and I said, I've got to stop. But because I had gone through a love trauma, this was the result of the research I was finding. And the research was what was healing me, because no psychotherapist could help me. Now, I am also a psychotherapist as well as a certified coach and certified clinical trauma professional. But I became the trauma professional later. So childhood trauma, when it happened to me, the event of my partner, my husband at the time, had severe childhood trauma that was not healed, very unconscious, and it basically ruled and ruined his life. And because I was married to him, it took a big hit on my life as well. We call it Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. So to society, he's this wonderful, outgoing, handsome, charming guy. And behind closed doors, whether it's our doors or just a whole secret life is existing, which was what his case was. So that's what happened. His secret life exploded on him within the schools that he worked in. And then it impacted our marriage. And the first thing I did was stood up and got an annulment and said, then the second thing was, I got to figure out what made him ruin our life, because we really had an idyllic life. We traveled the world. We had a lot of fun. There was a lot of love. It's like, why would he sabotage this, was my thought. And his words were, I don't know why I sabotage everything I love. And I said, I don't either, but I'm going to figure it out. So it came down to him having 9 of the 10 childhood traumas that I name, and they were pretty severe. He had a very angry, alcoholic father who was verbally and physically abusive, and a very docile mother who would not stand up for him. So there was a lot going on in his childhood that was never healed.
Wow. So you said it was kind of therapeutic as you were writing the book, and almost this is kind of, I would imagine, where you really started kind of figuring out, a lot about yourself and a lot about, I guess, this relationship.
Right.
And you said as you were writing this, it really kind of gave you your own therapy that nobody else could really give you.
It's funny because most of us grow up, and as children, we just kind of accept what's going on in our home because we can't change it. So most of us see dysfunction as normal. It's normalized. But then what happens in your adult love relationships, these happen to come out and really impact you in life, love, or business. So
Right.
that's
Your
what
spouse doesn't
happened.
have that same situation, and then what's normal for you, they're saying, "Wait, this is not normal." You know, same
Yes,
to your case exactly. What was
right.
normal to him, you're like, "No, this really isn't." He was probably very unaware that this wasn't a normal upbringing,
Well, he knew
potentially.
something was wrong, but he didn't know what. So when I finished the book and sent him a copy, he goes, "Oh my God, put my picture on the cover, on the poster
Okay.
child with this."
Yeah.
And we did.
Yeah.
We had a laugh about it, and I had so much empathy for his pain that I
Mhm.
was able to forgive him.
Oh, that's great.
But it really caused havoc in my life. But it also, I took my pain and made it my passion and my purpose. And I'm like, many people must be suffering from this. And at the time, it was saying 90% of people suffer from this. But this year, 2021, the stats were saying that 100% of people have some childhood trauma. And with
Interesting.
COVID, that's one of them. Everybody's been
Interesting.
impacted by COVID one way or another.
Sure.
So that's called community trauma. So it's
Yeah.
impacting our community and our families, our economy, our businesses. So
Yeah.
when you're a child going through this, the impact of this will be showing up when they're adults in love.
That's sad and scary to kind of think
Yeah,
about,
I
isn't it?
know. Yeah.
For sure. So, I guess let's start off by tell us and tell all of our listeners what exactly would you classify? What is a toxic relationship? I know that we could go probably an hour on that alone, but tell us what a toxic relationship really is, so people that may not even recognize they're in one or attract one or go after those would recognize what a toxic relationship
Yeah,
is.
most people really recognize it. It really physically makes you sick. So it
Mm.
gives you irritable bowel syndromes, migraines, you can't sleep, you can't eat or you overeat, you have bouts of depression, you're always anxious, walking on eggshells. Usually these people, when they're good, when they're bad, they're horrid, and you never know what you're going to get. So you live for each good moment. Um,
Real
and
volatile
it's just,
type of
yeah.
personality. Yeah.
And, I do have a lot of nurses that come to me as clients,
Right. We
a
talked about
ton
that.
from all over the world. And very often, if there's a lot of severity in their childhood trauma, they are then sociopathic. And a
Interesting.
sociopath is someone that uses another for pleasure, profit, or lifestyle advancement. So if it's a handsome, charming, foreign guy, coming after you and, you're solid in your career and, but a little bit lonely because you're traveling, then you are a good target. They usually do target helpers, smart, kind people, spiritual people,
You sure nailed our audience down right there, and and I've seen this. I've
Exactly.
seen this. You and I talked about this for 22 years. I've watched this where you've got and unfortunately, it typically seems to be women who tend to be the ones that get are the ones that get attached to these men primarily. And I'm just calling it like it is, as they say. And you hear about it, and also you kind of in the back of your mind, you're like, ooh, I know this traveler. I've known her for 2 or 3 years, and this seems a little. All of a sudden, I'm in love, and I'm going to give up my career. I'm going to do it. Next thing you know, gone. You disappear, and then 2 years later, you hear she calls you back, and you hear the story of what the last 2 years were like. That's happened
Yeah.
repeatedly to me in my career.
Yeah.
So they are a target. Like you and I talked about these men and women. Like you said, they aren't there for very long. They don't know anybody, so they're an easy prey because they don't have a hub of friends typically, probably to protect them. I would imagine.
Right, so that whirlwind romance in a foreign land can be quite romantic. So
Yeah.
now they have the work that they love, they have this partner that loves them, and initially it looks great, but they usually come on with love bombing. They'll love you hard and fast. Lots of
Yeah.
text messages, gifts, flowers, saying I love you very early on, looking for a fast marriage. That's a huge warning sign. But also, Mark, here in Florida, I've had a lot of men clients where foreign women come on to them and make them feel like, oh, you're so amazing, blah, 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 blah. And these
Right.
older men believe it, okay? And then
Sure.
they marry.
Because we need someone to tell us that we're amazing, because our wives haven't told us that for 2 decades, right? Yeah, no, it's
You
you're
know,
right. It's also
they
it
go
could be an
out
age
like
thing.
crazy, right? They're hypersexual. Then they push for marriage and they have a baby very quickly. Then they usually divorce. So that is the MO, and they take as much financially as they can. And I've had several men in my office devastated by that scenario. So it does happen in
Interesting.
reverse as well.
Right. So in our case, obviously these people mostly traveling in the United States, that foreign could be just a new stranger in town, which is what it comes to. And it could even be, I would imagine, you work with a lot of nurses, you said. I would imagine it could even be another hospital employee who, everyone's kind of aware of. And, you walk in as a traveler, maybe there's a charming guy or a charming gal, and boom, they're on you, and you don't know what hit you. And they've been just waiting for you to come walking in the door, and you're a high-paid traveler, and here you go.
Yeah, I mean, they're looking for that person. Then once you are married and together, people say, well, why do you stay? Well, they're
Right.
hoping he will change. They want to keep the peace. If there's a child involved, they don't want to break up their family. They love them, and they're hoping that when they make all their promises over and over, I'll change, you'll see, I promise, you want to believe them, because
Right.
you always want it what it was like back in the beginning.
Sure.
So,
So really, that's a pretty big start. Is in any relationship, I would imagine your advice is taking it slow.
Yeah.
Is probably key number one. And then, I mean, anybody would give that advice, but clearly, someone who's pushing that envelope, and again, we could be talking about. I would imagine we can talk about this here in a minute, but I can imagine we could also be talking about platonic relationships or even friendship type relationships that can also be toxic, where you're a new gal in town, and another gal who wants to be your best buddy and your best friend is using you just as bad, even though there's not a sexual relationship involved. It's more of a friendship relationship.
it could happen. I don't see that as often. Those people say, I don't have time for this. I know our
Right.
nurses are very busy. Um, So that's why they would normally gravitate to the boyfriend first versus having a girlfriend or two. So that's what they have to watch out for. Always do a background check if you're starting to fall for someone.
Yeah.
It's super important. Get their
It seems harsh, doesn't it? It seems like this, like, oh, I don't want to do that because that's I don't know what
They
that
won't
would
know
be.
you're doing it, and you
Yeah,
gotta
well,
do it.
I think
It's
that people
amazing
get
when
right
I've
with that in their own
told
head.
people, I don't like what I'm hearing, just do a background check. Let's see what's
Yeah.
there. Then there's a long list of things there, and I'm like, yeah, okay, that one you gotta drop. So,
Multiple.
and
So
you
what do
want
you look for in a
before you get-
background? Obviously, if you're background checking a female, you might be looking for multiple names. I would imagine. What are you looking for? What comes up in a background for something that you're looking for? Something that has a toxicity about them that's
multiple
habitual.
names, but you're looking for arrest records, jail time, con artist stuff, change of names, marriages.
Serious stuff. Real
Yeah.
heavy duty stuff.
Yeah, and it's not that much. It's like $19 a month or something like that. It's
Interesting.
worth it
No,
before you get too heavily involved with someone.
I think that's great advice. So slow down. Someone who's coming on real strong, I think anybody should just recognize, no matter how lonely you are, no matter how long it's been since you've been in a relationship, sometimes things that are too good to be true can in fact be too good to be true. And it's kind of like you have to have that maturity level to say, wait a minute, let's just slow down. Let's just pause this before I start to, fall head over heels in love with somebody who I barely know, who really thinks I'm amazing. And
Yeah.
and it's kind of hard probably to, it's certainly easy for you and I to talk about. I imagine in your books and in your interviews and with all the people you deal with, it's probably amazing how often very intelligent, very smart, very bright, very world-wise people fall for this every single day.
Yeah, it's not about that. Everyone wants love.
Yeah.
So it really depends on what you had come from. So that's when I had to examine my childhood dynamic.
Interesting.
Many baby boomers, which I'm part of, never heard the words, I love you. We had parents that did not give a lot of hugs and kisses or affection.
Right.
Did you hear those
Right.
words, Mark? I don't know.
I did from my mom. My dad was, I grew up in the 60s and 70s and stuff. So my dad, would come home, read the paper. Wonderful man, love him to death.
Yeah.
Both my parents are still here, and great relationship now. But no, that's not the way it was. You didn't raise your boy as a man. You didn't raise your son with affection, because that's just not what you did in the 60s and 70s. That was weird.
It's
And my
funny.
father came
on
from a
the beach
military
with-
family, so.
Oh, there you go.
His
I-
grandfather was in the British Navy, so I mean, it came from there, and it's certainly, but that's why I attended every one of my son's hockey games, every one of my son's hockey practices. I was there all the time because life is different now than it was in the 60s and 70s. And that's not a fault of my father. Wonderful man, but that was
Well,
what
they
the
say
era was.
childhood trauma goes through at least 3 generations. So if you had it, so did your parents, and so did their parents. So I did ask my mom. It was right after I had my first daughter, Stefan. I was 24. And I said, I love this little baby so much. And she goes, yeah, it's great. You're the first of my children to have a baby. And I'm like, but Mom, how come you never tell us children that you love us? And I'm 24 now, and I haven't heard the words. She goes, well, those aren't words I heard. We grew up in the Great Depression. It was all about work and survival.
Right.
And when I look at the way my mom showed love, she worked for us, and we could get love if we worked really hard and got good grades and excelled. And that's what we did, And I was on the beach with 9 people of our age group, 9 cohorts, and they all said, I didn't hear the words, I love you either. So then when you look back and you're like, wow, okay, so when somebody's gushing you with love and you really didn't have it growing up, that tends to feel pretty good.
Right. I'll tell you, I don't have a conversation with my parents without saying I love you every single time now. Same thing with my brother and sister. That's just the way we are now, because I think we've realized what we missed growing up. And again, it's about the era. So you're right. So people that haven't heard that, people our age, and you and I are the same age, we have to be careful that we don't crave that going back to childhood is what I'm kind of hearing from you. Yeah.
And very
it's a generational thing.
Well, people are going through that today too.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. It just depends on your family's home. And a lot of men are using sex to equal love. Well, if you give me sex and maybe I'll love you. And women are saying, okay. And that's a huge mistake, because usually they have the sex and say thank you very much and move on.
Right.
So women have got to really think in a whole different way. The best way is to become friends first. Slow it down, really get to know this person, have some fun. Are they your best friend? Are they your buddy? Is it someone you can trust? Then get intimately involved.
Right, because being married for 22 years now, I mean, I would say that's a successful marriage.
Yeah.
And that other stuff goes away, and what you're left with is hopefully your best friend.
Right.
And that's at the end of the day, what's going to matter, not the sex, not the romance, all that kind of stuff. It really comes down to when that stuff's gone.
Sex and romance. That's
sure.
That, But
you got to make sure that you're friends first. Otherwise, that other stuff isn't going to happen either, right? If you're in a loveless marriage, that's the last thing that's probably going to be happening.
Well, how I describe it is the sex is the icing on the cake. But without the cake, which is the substance, the character, who are they as a person? Do you respect them? Do you really like them? Do you trust them? Are they honorable people? Without that, the icing melts, you've got nothing.
Yeah, who wants to eat a bunch of icing all the time? That gets to be too sugary, and it's not, I don't know, I'm trying to come up with a good analogy for it, but all right. So here's a couple of, again, just naive questions for me. Obviously, how do you recognize somebody else if they're in a toxic relationship? A good friend. How do you recognize it? And then a 2-part question is, how do you dare approach them with, you're in trouble, this is what's going on. So, I mean, first and foremost, for someone out there that thinks they have another traveler or another friend or someone that they've worked with that might be in a relationship, how do you recognize that for somebody else that you can't?
Well, the first thing is to know what the top 10 traumas are. That's the assessment tool I came out with in 2012 called the Childhood Trauma Checklist.
Okay.
And people can get that for free on my website, RihannaMilne.com. But when you know what the top 10 are, and you might know your friend and your friend's background, and you see them, it's usually repetitively choosing a toxic partner, which we call RRS, Relationship Repetition Syndrome. So you have one toxic partner, you break up, you read a ton of books, you go on a few podcasts, you're there, I got it now, I know what I'm doing wrong. And then, unfortunately, you pick another one, just like that. So what's happening?
And why do people do that? My wife has friends that, I don't think I'm saying too much here, because I don't know if they probably listen to this because they're not travelers, but my wife has friends that tend to, every time, it's like, okay, how much does this guy drink? How much does this guy drink? It's the alcoholism. I'm like, this 2 friends of hers consistently jump into relationships with men who abuse alcohol,
Yeah.
and then
That's a
it's
big
six
problem
months,
in
and then
today's
she's like,
world.
"Oh, he's volatile and he's drinking." I'm like, "Duh!" We're all looking at her like going, "Yes,
So
you
why
said
is that?
that."
The
So,
reason why they stay is their own traumas have not been healed. Their
mm,
own traumas are keeping them attached. So if they did not have love and they give them some sort of love, they stay or they're not able to go. Or they'll break up, their conscious mind will say, I know he's no good for me. Then they break up, and then about 10 days to 14 days later, they get back together. And then it's good for a
yeah,
while, and then they fight again, and then they break
right,
up. And the average RRS relationship is 7 times breaking up before it's finally
wow,
done. Yeah. So
wow,
that's part of love addiction, part of
yeah.
codependency, which is side effects of not healing your childhood traumas.
Interesting. So you really suggest that that's really where a lot of healing and everything starts. You've got to address childhood traumas. You've got to go into seeing
It's the root
what's
of the
going on.
issues. Yeah.
Right. And obviously we talked about it. I'm gonna spell that. It's the Rihanna Milne. It's RianaMilne.com.
RihannaMilne.com.
Right. Is there any? There's no dot in between first and last name. So
No. Mm-mm.
perfect. All right. So it's Milne, not Milne. It's Milne.
That's right. Mhm.
So guys, check that website out. And she's, by the way, and I'll just give you a quick plug. We're going to talk a little bit more about your website toward the end, but there is a ton of stuff on your website. I mean, 7 different books. And again, you've been featured in different magazines. You're just a very qualified individual. And so whatever we're talking about today, there's tons of other information on there. And we'll talk a little bit more about getting involved with you at the end as well, so people have that opportunity too. So, all right, so you've got a friend, let's say, that you see is in one. I mean, obviously, for yourself, there's no other way besides just breaking that relationship apart. You've got to recognize it and get out of Dodge, basically, and have enough intestinal fortitude to be able to end that toxic relationship if it's you. If
Yeah.
it's
I
a
mean,
friend,
if you're a
that's a little different.
spiritually based person, if that person's ready to get help and is very remorseful, then spiritually you can give them a second chance. But they have to know if this happens one more time, I'm done. And you have to mean it.
Yeah,
And that, usually the repeat offenders, unless you actually leave. And, they'll go on and repeat it with another person. So
yeah.
they really have to take it seriously if they want to stay in the relationship. And the only way you usually get them to get help is by breaking up the relationship and making them leave.
Interesting.
Hmm.
All right. So again, going back to what I was saying, if you are somebody who recognizes this in a dear friend of yours or seeing it remotely, just kind of pull them aside and talk to them about it and tell them what you're seeing and asking them, what
I
they're
would,
doing.
give them
Continue.
the free ebook that I have,
Okay.
so they
How do people
understand.
how do people get that?
On my website,
Understood. Okay.
RihannaMilne.com is up in the upper corner,
Okay. Perfect.
the homepage. Get that, read it, and you'll know more of the signs of it. Being that you're nurses, you're going to see a lot of this in your clients. So it's really should be part of your education for what you're seeing. When you see someone with ongoing anxiety, all my clients that come to me have ongoing anxiety, bouts
Yeah.
of depression, could be eating disorders, irritable bowel. Like I said, you got to find out if they're with a toxic partner.
Hmm.
It's one of the leading things, and then they're staying and they seem stuck. They don't seem to have that ability to leave.
Gotcha.
So, that's what I help people do. I help people heal from the love trauma, then understand the childhood trauma and heal from that as well. And then with the Mindset for Success work as a certified mindset coach, I help them move forward in life to create that life they really do desire and then to have the love they deserve. That's the process. And when they get out to go dating again, they know the exact skills for dating, what to do and what not to do, and exactly what to look for, the exact questions to ask when they're out there dating.
That's interesting because you really kind of described a traveler, whether it be a nurse or an allied professional, like I always say, in general, because you've got to recognize some things, stay away, avoid those toxic relationships. But really, again, these people have oftentimes decided that they want to move forward. These are risk takers, these men and women. They don't have a steady job because they want to go out and either see the country or explore a higher income by taking this gamble and basically, taking a contract, which means they're not guaranteed employment after every 3 months typically. So these men and women are usually a little more brave. They're usually, have that self drive that I think a lot of other healthcare professionals that like that staff job, that security, the insurance, the benefits. These men and women are cut from a different cloth. So they're risk takers. So what you talked about, getting healthy and then going out and focusing on that drive, focusing on that success. There's a lot more to you in your webpage that would apply to these guys and gals. Certainly, I would say for sure. So it's not just, I guess, you're saying that. So I guess, can a healthy person that doesn't have a lot of childhood trauma still become victim to a toxic relationship by not recognizing some of the warning signs of someone coming in so fast? Or is it, do you find that people that tend to attract a toxic relationship oftentimes have some stuff they have to work on themselves? Or again, I'm just,
People of trauma attract people of trauma. Because once you're healed and healthy from this, you can spot the toxic person a mile away.
And you
Even
have
if
the
it
intestinal
takes you
fortitude to
a
avoid
couple
it.
of dates, when something starts turning, or if you see you do your background check, you're able to walk away and not feel any sting or, oh, I'm going to miss him. No, it's like self-protection. I'm done. So yeah, it's a whole different sense of empowerment is what I call it.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's to me, that you kind of summed that up. That makes a lot of sense, because you don't have that neediness to have to be that way. You're mentally healthy, you're clean, you understand it, you recognize it, no matter what it is, whether it's just a slight personality change between the public persona and then the behind the scenes, and you're just like, forget it, I'm done. I always think that comes with maturity. And again, I've got a lot of friends that are our age, that are back in the dating world, and they're like, I just don't have time to goof around with with crappy relationships anymore. And I think those people are telling me that have addressed their issues they have or don't have any, and they don't have time for playing around with toxicity at all. And it's the other ones that you see that are constantly falling in love with the next greatest thing, and then 3 weeks later, what happened? I'm out in California right now, and I'm actually at real close to the beach, and there's a lot of men and women here that are single, and this is the 12th year I've been here. And it's funny because a couple of guys I know, every year I come back, it's what's the flavor of the month this time. I don't know which one's that has the toxicity, but my wife and I kind of joke, oh, this guy's has this new girlfriend this year, so it's something definitely is in the water.
And it could be the one that nothing's good enough. The perfectionist. Oh, she didn't do her hair the same way today. I'm upset. That repetitive stuff could be part of it. You just don't know. Most people have childhood trauma, so the important thing is to heal it first. What kind of work have they done for themselves? Are they into personal self-growth? Do they read self-growth? A lot of women do. Unfortunately, we always wish more men did. More men were into spirituality, which brings you a sense of integrity, as far as who you are as a man. That's sorely lacking in our male population.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because I think you're right. I can tell you personally, I don't read a lot of, I guess, spiritual self-help type things. I do a lot of self-help for business. I do a lot of self-help for mentality and thinking clear and getting to know yourself, but not in a spiritual way. And I think
there's even spiritual books like Think and Grow Rich or The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success.
Sure.
Wayne Dyer's work is great spiritual education. Tony Robbins is all based in spirituality and growth to become what it is you dream to be. So, they're great books for personal growth and accountability and, being your best, highest self, which we call being evolved. And that's what women are looking for. A man that, quote, has their shit together. It's like to have your life together, if you have that, then that's a good place to be. But,
so for a lot of men out there, and there's a lot of men in our profession, which is really cool to see more and more, we need to take some time to invest in ourselves, because it does. It makes us a better partner. It makes us a more
Oh,
attractive
yeah.
partner. It makes us more of a long-term, desirable partner. You are investing in that aspect of yourself that, let's just be frank, sometimes men need that more. Like you just said, all women wish men would read this sort of material more, which tells you that we could use some of this. And I'm just being
I
blunt.
gotta say,
with
a
my-
lot of the men in the helping profession, a lot of the men that are nurses are really beautiful souls.
Yeah.
They usually are into spirituality and holistic health and healing, and read these kinds of books to keep their own mental health in check with what they deal with day in and day out in the hospital
Right.
settings, or, out in the countries that they're working. So I'm not talking in particular, our audience are probably the most evolved people listening. But maybe they can help inspire other men, as they
Yeah.
see men coming in and they're upset or they're drinking too much. It's like, hey, are you doing anything to help yourself? To grow spiritually, to become who you're meant to be, so. Yeah.
Well, think about it this way: if you do that, you're going to be a more attractive, quote unquote, individual for a lot more women, I guess. So, and look at it that way, and that's the
Yeah.
way men think. How can I be more? So if you do this, you're bringing more to the table. You're
Yes.
bringing more to the table, and it's not that you're reducing your masculinity, which I think some people worry about, and there's all kinds of things like that going around in our world right now. I don't think that's true. I think what you're doing is you're investing in your own relationship quality, and
Correct.
giving that the ability to be able to have you be something that somebody wants to not only be with but stay with for a long period of time. And I think that's to me
Yeah.
that's pretty cool, and that's pretty masculine to
I hear a lot of my women complaining. It's like, you go online dating, men list that they do 15 sports. I could care less. Are they spiritual? So we don't
Right.
care about the machismo, blah, blah, blah. It's
Right.
like, who are you as a person? So any men that are single and out there on online apps and are spiritually based or read personal self-help, please do let the women know that on your profile. That's who they're looking for. Who are you as a person? Not very many women, who especially are working, can keep up with 15 sports.
Yeah.
And then are you going to be off doing your sports all the time and have no time for me, the lady? So that's not a real attractive sign to a woman. Most women don't want all that, you see? So the men just aren't thinking, what do women want when they write their profile?
Yeah.
And they're looking for a good-hearted person. They're looking for a man with some soul,
And guys, Rihanna knows what she's talking about. I mean, you've written a ton of books. How many years have you been in this field?
Oh, I've been studying psychology since I was
Sorry.
14. 14.
Yeah.
I used to get Psychology Today magazine and Teen magazine because I started modeling at age 12. So, and then I had my model and talent company at age 26, and that's when I was teaching the mindset work. But what got me into the spirituality was actually the loss of my best friend at 16 by a car accident.
boy.
And I had to process that loss. He was killed by a drunk driver, and it's my first death experience, and I was devastated as a young person, then questioning, how much time do I have? I have a lot I want to do, I could be
Right.
taken next week. So it really made me more serious about life and to find my purpose and live my purpose and help people along the way to find purpose. So that in combination is how I got there. But later in life, at age 37, that's when I went back for a triple master's in applied clinical and counseling psychology, and then
Yeah.
became a psychotherapist in private practice. But I also worked in schools, in a medical center for kids and adolescents in South Jersey, drug rehab facilities as an LCADC for women in the prison system, and also teenagers. So with all these diverse populations, no matter their age, culture, background, the same top 10 traumas kept coming up. So that's why it's so important to know what the top 10 traumas are.
Really interesting. Yeah, guys and gals, she knows her stuff, and that's why I was so excited to have you on as a guest today. Because
Thank
I mean, you and I could have talked about a lot of things, and especially that apply to traveling healthcare professionals. But I just felt like this is one of those that nobody is openly talking about this sort of relationship, which I'm telling you, again, maybe people don't realize this, but it is really common, and I hear it all the way to me.
Well,
And so for 20 years, people tell
sociopathy
me.
is really picking up. When I did my research in 2011 for my book, it was 1 in 25. Now it's like 8 in 25 people are sociopathic. And as the world is suffering financially and economically, more and more charmers are out there trying to, get the lifestyle they want by living off someone else.
Yeah, I can see that. It's unfortunate, and
Yeah.
it's common. You're right. It is. I mean, there's movies about it. There was a
Well,
guy
that
here in
series-
California that was called something. I can't remember his name, but he was horrible, and
Yeah.
he was actually a healthcare provider, and he got a hold of a wealthy single lady that. I mean, he's a pretty famous case. I don't.
The
remember
Dirty
his name.
John case?
That's the guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
If anyone has
so-
not seen that series, it's on Netflix. It's
Yeah, Eric Bana does a really good job of playing a very bad guy, and you
Yeah.
don't like him very much in that. He's really good, but that's exactly, and it's very accurate portrayal.
very
And this is
accurate.
exactly the kind of thing that you're talking about. And this woman was successful and had a lot of beautiful, had a lot of things going
Successful,
for her,
pretty, great mom, Christian-based.
and just couldn't
Um,
stay away from this toxic individual, which is insane.
Yeah, I mean, he roped her in by being the perfect partner.
Yeah, and it's out there. And I think these men and women need to understand that. I think, again, part of what we're saying, we're just trying to be, again, have a conversation that people just don't seem to want to have. You guys can be a target out there. You guys, like we talked about when we were talking beforehand, lots of money, especially right now in the industry with what's going on with COVID and the amount of money government is funding into facilities. There's a lot of money out there, and I think many people recognize that you as the traveler have an opportunity to make. I mean, travelers were making on pace $500,000 a year during the height of COVID last year. They were making 10 grand a week. Some of these men and women. I know because they were complaining about the taxes they were getting taken out for it.
Wonderful.
It's the way it goes.
They deserve
But
it. They're-
people, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, they
People
deserve what-
see this
what
stuff.
they're doing.
So, and I think the reason why there's such another heightened target is that typically it's a quicker buck right now, which means, and I want to make sure I'm saying this right, the lifestyle that these men and women have hasn't caught up with their income, so they have lots of extra money. In other words, they haven't gone out and bought a $3 million house and are driving around in a Bentley yet. So it's money they have that they didn't have, or it's periodic. So lots of money in the bank, lots of money sitting there on a debit card, which means you can go out and even if it's not a marriage thing,
Shouldn't be on
someone
a
might get a
debit
hold of you.
card. That's too easy to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone can just attract you and just say, let's go run off to Europe for a couple weeks when you're done with this assignment. Let's take off to Catalina, and you can just pay for everything because I'm the man of your dreams, and everything else. So it is kind of crazy. All right, so how do people get involved with you? You and I talked, and I wanted to. You've made a couple of offers to me that you would share with our audience, and I thought it was really cool. And again, I'm hoping this episode will stand a test of time. It'll be out there for a very long time. So as people discover Travel Evolved, I hope that they would certainly watch this episode. And if you know somebody or you yourself are somebody, I'd love to get them in touch with you. So
Sure.
let's see if there's a way. I know you're crazy busy, and she is, ladies and gentlemen. But there's an
But I
opportunity.
don't take
think-
on a large caseload. I only
There
do
you go.
people one-on-one so they get amazing transformation. If I'm full, then there's a waiting list, but very often I have people coming and going because one graduates and I can put the next person in. So,
Great.
I am here to help as many people as I can globally. That's why I'm a global coach now and not the psychotherapist. So just the best thing to do is go to my website. It's RihannaMilne.com. And when you're on that, the very top, like I said, is the free ebook. In the header is an orange button where you can meet with me for only $47. That's it. It's a $497 1-hour assessment that I spend a total hour on you assessing why you're attracting toxic people and how to help you heal from what's been going on in your life. And then the free book chapter downloads are there and 4 free love tests. And one of the love tests is the childhood trauma checklist. There's tests there for singles and couples, so check those out. And then my podcast is called Lessons in Life and Love with Coach Rihanna Milne. And I have 108 shows of the podcast, but on my YouTube channel, I have like 250 tapes, audios and videos. So do go to the YouTube channel. You'll get a whole lot of education there.
Well, and you got some really good testimonials too, and people that swear by you. You helped a lot of people, and again,
Thousands by now. In 22 years, it's been thousands and thousands over the years. And the cool thing is, Mark, those that have married, I even married some. I'm an officiant as well, so I help heal them. And it's like, Rihanna, we want you to marry us.
That's
so,
great. That's quite an honor
when I can do that. Yeah. So and their relationships are sustaining time. They've learned how to communicate through their issues, not be emotionally triggered anymore, not to go into being attacked mode. It's a whole new way of understanding how to communicate through issues in relationships. So I work with singles and couples, men and women, straight and LGBTQ, because childhood trauma has no prejudice. So if you're at least age 16 to 76, you could be my client. Yeah.
Well, and what's great about it is that you said it yourself. People graduate from this. This is not, you fix it. You go and you address the issue, you fix it, and you send them on their way. So people don't have to think this is a non-stop, forever. This is a basically, for lack of my pardon my ignorance, but it's kind of like a course, and you
it is a
work
course
with you, and you're done, and you get it now. And this is a fixable and treatable thing. You don't have to suffer the rest of your life by making the same mistakes over and over again. You can get out of this stuff. And again, I've just seen it. And I can recognize, I'm not even trained at all, not even close, but I can tell when someone's like, oh, I've met this guy. And you're like, oh no. And you can tell. It's not like the normal, I've met this guy. This person's a sweet, trustworthy, like you said, individual, a provider of healthcare. These are helping people. They want it. They can make a lot more money, even though they're making great money doing other things. But these men and women have dedicated their lives to helping other people, so they're automatically, not an enabler, but they're automatically in that mindset where they are a caregiver. They're out to help other people, and that makes it worse. But you can get out of this, and you guys, for those of you that are, attract this toxicity, or somebody that does, send them to Rihanna's way, because you guys will see that it is a course and it'll be done, and you can.
It's 4 to 6 weeks, 4 to 6 months. I'm sorry. It is based on my clinical trauma training. I'm CCTP, and it's a 150-page workbook, all based from my research. So we work as a partner. It's a collaborative team. It's highly educational because I have much to teach. So it's not like a therapy session where you sit there and talk. No, it is interactive. From what you write on the worksheet is how I teach you back what I need you to know and practice. So that's why I only take a few VIPs at one time, so I remember everybody's story, and it's just back and forth and changing your mindset and how you feel about things. Plus, we also have to do the biology of healing the trauma out of the brain and the body cells, of course. So that you're not emotionally triggered anymore. And when you've got this mindset, you will use it the rest of your life. You will always use these skills. That's the best part.
What a great life you have. What a good thing you do. And it's got to be a lot of fun. It's got to be
Thank you.
Pretty,
I love
rewarding.
it. I get very close with my clients. We're like a big family. Yeah.
I can certainly imagine you would. Well.
Yeah.
This is great. I'm gonna, as we talked, the team in Denver's be putting up a lot of your website, all your books up there as we were talking. So you guys can go back, rewatch this, reference those, to be able to find, find Rihanna. And what a great deal. And I hope this was helpful for everybody today, that they kind of understand, why we wanted to have this episode and why we wanted to cover this, I guess, sensitive topic, because it's really common and it's something that a lot of people, I think, are experiencing more than they may even know, and that's why I want to bring it to everyone's attention today.
Okay, thank you, Mark. I want to encourage them, if you think you might have this, come in and see me. It's only $47. Let's get to the bottom of what's going on for you, because you don't have to keep suffering in this. And, you're really great-hearted people being out there in today's world, helping everyone as you are. So you deserve great love, and I want to make sure you have that, and no sociopaths in the process, because that is absolutely emotional devastating. And when you're working like you are, in the trenches like you are, you need to feel really good about all aspects of your life. You can't have this troubled love life and go to work and be mentally clear. So, it's very important that you have an emotionally healthy love too.
Absolutely. Sets you up for a successful life, really and truly.
Yes. Yes.
So, well, thank you so much again for joining us. I really appreciate it, and hope to, again, you and I talked about having you back on down the road, and we've got a whole bunch of other things we can certainly talk about. But thank you for carving out some time for us and our audience here today.
You're welcome.
And I really
Thanks
appreciate it. Awesome. Okay. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. I don't know if you can hear me on that or not yet. I hope you guys understood why it was I wanted to have Rihanna on. It makes, this whole thing makes sense. And again, like I said in the prelude to this whole thing, is that there's a lot to go over and a lot to talk about. Sorry, there's going to be a big, loud helicopter going over, but you just got to deal with what you got to deal with, right? A lot to talk about. I may just slow down my talking while that, because that's going to get really loud really fast. Sorry, I'm on the beach, California. This is a non-stop thing here, and there it goes. It's like living in New York when you get so used to the whistles and sirens and the chirps from the police and the fire department and the ambulances all on the street. It's just, you just sleep. Same thing out here. Just helicopters are part of the thing. So anyway, apologize about that. So anyway, really, really great conversation today. And again, it's www. I always say the www dots. Riana Milne, RianaMilne. And so .com. Check out that page. I did lots of stuff on there. Very accomplished woman, very accomplished career, and she's just kind of still getting going right now. Lots to bring to the table. So I hope you guys kind of understood why this was an episode I really wanted to get out there and film. It is just another wrinkle. It's one of the advantages I have of being in the industry as long as I've been in it, that I see these little tiny things, and not a lot of people have seen this. So there's a lot of people who wouldn't think to have an episode about toxic relationships. But you guys, I'm telling you, I've seen this repeatedly. This is not just me thinking, oh, it's happened once or twice. It's happened a lot. And I'm not even talking to people, on a very extensive level on a daily basis. So if it gets where I hear about it or someone's telling me about it, it just tells you how common this must be. You guys all know people. Maybe, I hope it's not you. If it is, get some help and get this stuff squashed, because if you're repeatedly making those mistakes over and over and over again, there's no way out of it. And according to Rihanna, and I agree with her, it's probably goes back to something that you've been dealing with for a long time or your whole life. And recognizing that, and getting your head clear and clean on it, so that you build that strength and you build that intestinal fortitude to be able to recognize the toxicity that might be attracting in your life. You can break free and do like we said, and just like, I'm good. I'm not going to get involved in this relationship. I recognize it, and you don't even think twice. And that's exactly what you need to do. Life is short, as I've always said. And we talked about it. We never know how long we're going to have. So what's important is that you make the most out of what you've got here. Don't get stuck in a relationship that is unsatisfying and toxic, and that you're constantly, regretting being there. Especially if you get married, and it just finances, everything complicates stuff. Take it slow and recognize this stuff and kind of go from there. So I hope today was helpful. I loved this conversation. She was a great guest. I knew she would be. Very, very knowledgeable, and just has a ton of stuff to offer all of us here at Travel Evolve. So thank you again, Rihanna, for your time today. I know she's super busy. She's got stuff going on, I think, with New Yorker magazine, with Forbes magazine, and she was able to carve out some time for us today, which I'm really, really thankful for. So I hope this was helpful today, guys, and really, keep exploring it. Thanks for subscribing to YouTube. Thanks for subscribing to our podcast, and I will catch you guys next time on Travel Evolved.